Good afternoon, you lovely people. Welcome back to Lily White Lane. I hope that you're all having a really good Tuesday and week wherever you are in the world and whatever you are planning to get up to today and over the rest of the week as a whole. Quick disclaimer before we crack on with today's video. I do want to apologise if at times I sound like Marge Simpson. I do currently have a cold, so if I start randomly crackling up for no reason like Sean Dyche, that is the reasoning as to why. Without further ado, let's delve into what we're going to be discussing in today's video, which is, would Spurs be better suited next season in the Champions League or the Europa League? Now, in previous seasons, there would have been no discussion to be had here. It would have been 100% the Champions League, but I think there's pros and cons for Spurs being in both competitions next season. I'll start things off by talking about the Champions League, and when it comes to pros, it's the prestige of the competition. It's the Champions League, it's the biggest European competition, it's the profit that your club makes from qualifying from it. It's those big nights that can turn out fantastic against the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester City, PSG, Bayern Munich, the top European sides. But some of the cons contradict those statements. Those big nights can also very quickly turn into disastrous nights if your team isn't good enough. And if you qualify for the Champions League in fourth and you haven't been contending for the league title, you're going to take on teams that have been contending for titles in other countries, teams who are far ahead of you, to be 100% honest. And if we qualify for the Champions League next season and play against someone such as Real Madrid, we could get one over them and it could be a historic night, but we could also be battered like a haddock down your local chip shop. Do you know what I mean? Also, looking at the profit that you make from Champions League in previous seasons, I've gotten excited that we've qualified for the competition because I thought, yeah, we've got money now that we can invest back into the squad, whereas that money hasn't been invested. Daniel Levy and Ina constantly boast about Tottenham being the most profitable football club in London, yet we keep hearing statements and news articles in January transfer windows and summer transfer windows that money's quite tight and running out. Do you know what I mean? So if we actually qualify for Champions League, I think getting top 4, top 5 this season with a coefficient, Ange Postecoglou said it himself, it's more of a club achievement than it is an actual achievement. You don't get a trophy for qualifying for top 4. I think it's something that's very much overhyped in today's game, and especially if you finish 4th and haven't been contending for the league title, you're going to take on the best sides in Europe. Are you really ready for that? Are we going to be really ready to take on the best sides in Europe in phase 2 of our rebuild? I'm not sure. As I say, we may make a historic night, but we could also have some disastrous ones, like we did with that 7-2 against Bayern Munich a few seasons ago when we weren't ready for the Champions League, or last season where we just couldn't score against an AC Milan team that, let's not beat around the bush, were very, very average. So, look, I think there's pros to the Champions League and qualifying for it, but in previous seasons we've qualified for it. We thought we were going to kick on. The ownership hasn't backed the manager with the players required, and as I say, it's not meant anything. Qualifying for Champions League only means something if you capitalise on it, if you do something in the competition, if you spend that money wisely and invest it into top players, the attraction of having Champions League football. If you don't do that, it's pointless. It's just more profit for the owners that they're not going to invest back into the club that they can boast about. Whereas the Europa League, in my opinion, has a lot more pros. It genuinely does. And as I say, I'll make a verdict at the end of this video, but you guys can already see the direction that I'm going in. When you're looking at the Europa League, the first pro is we've actually got a very good chance of winning it next season. Liverpool are going to be back in the Champions League, obviously probably have Xavi Alonso. Leverkusen are going to be in the Champions League. You're looking at other Europa League clubs that could be in it next season. I get that you get the ones that drop out of Champions League groups, but actually starting in the groups, you're probably going to have the likes of Roma, potentially, who are a good side, but are also very beatable. You're looking at Premier League sides that might qualify for it if Spurs do as well. Maybe a West Ham, a Brighton, a Manchester United. Very beatable sides. We've shown that this season. And I think, as I say, in the Europa League, you've got a genuine chance of winning it. A genuine chance of winning silver. And what's the point in being in a competition if you're not going for winning it? The Europa League, I think we've got a genuine chance of doing something. The Conference League, I think if we qualified for it, obviously I don't want to because the attraction from players drops down and we may lose some and the project starts going backwards a little bit. But Conference League, as I say, you should win that. Whereas the Europa League, you've got a much, much better chance of winning the competition than the Champions League or going far in it. Look, Arsenal, as I say, if they would have been lumped into the Champions League in their first few seasons under Arteta, the rebuild could have gone a very, very different way. But they were in the Europa League. They didn't win it as such, but it was the competition that they needed. Who got his debut in the Europa League? Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka got his debut in the Europa League. Emil Smith-Rowe, debut in the Europa League. A lot of these Arsenal youngsters, Martinelli, debut in the Europa League, that we rave about now, started off in the Europa League because they got game time. And that leads me on to my next point, developing young players. So many exciting young players. You've got Dorrington, Donnelly, Ashley Phillips from the academy. And you've also got players who are out on loan right now, such as Alejo Veliz. I'm trying to think of another one. Bergevall, who's been absolutely fantastic. Lucas Bergevall, as one of my mates called him the other day. And as I say, these players won't get any game time in the Champions League or the Premier League. Whereas the Europa League group stage, you don't know who you're going to get. But if you're taking on someone like Carrier Bag, they've got a chance to develop. So in the knockout stages, you can go and you've got a good chance of winning it. And in the group stages, there's probably a 70-80% chance you're going to get a few teams that aren't quite up to the standard that you are, that you can use your young players against. I think those pros, as I say, do outweigh some of the pros for the Champions League. The cons are the attraction. You may not be able to sign as many top stars, but I don't think that's really what Spurs need right now. I think we're going through a transitional season. We're rebuilding under Ange Postecoglou. I think we need young, exciting players who are going to develop, and I think you'll be able to sign those in the Europa League. I think the Europa League, as I say, it is still an attractive prospect for opposition players joining Spurs if they see that we finished 8th last season and this season got a Europa League place. So, look, personally, I actually think we'd be better suited for the Europa League next season. That's my verdict. If we get Champions League football, I think it's a great season when you look at the table, when you consider that we finished 8th last season, and if we can get UCL in the top 5, that'd be absolutely brilliant. Or top 4 if we somehow miraculously as a country don't get the coefficients. It also would be quite funny to see all the people who've been calling this season a shambles and going mad the last few days and overreacting to one loss pipe down a little bit. But as I say, in my opinion, Europa League football, we've got more chance of actually winning it. We've got more chance of going on a run in it. We've got a good chance to develop young players in it. And yeah, I just think it suits us right now where we're going. I think maybe in a few seasons we'll be ready for the Champions League. It's like the ending of Gremlins, when he goes, maybe in a few years you'll be ready to have Mogwai, but not yet. Not yet, you're ready. Not ready to have Mogwai yet. Not ready to have Champions League yet. But look, guys, you may disagree with me. You may agree with me. The overreaction is still doing my head in from the last few days over one loss. All about talking about a rebuild and this, that, and after one loss, people are questioning our manager and asking for him a few to get sacked. It really is stupid. But in Big Ange we trust, of course. It's a long process. It's going to take time. And next season, I think this early into our rebuild, the Europa League would be a lot better suited for us. But guys, comment your thoughts down below. You've been absolutely awesome. Thank you for watching this video. Take care. All the best. Have a smashing rest of your day. And as always, Comedy Spurs, Enoch and Levy out. In Big Ange we trust.